zoop, about the Orqa. And I tried to think, Blunty, of the most dramatic title I could come up with for this story. I came up with Orqa goggles bricked worldwide. How'd I do?
That's fair. Maybe something about ransomware might be catchy or something, but
Ooh,
that's
ransomware.
the term
That's
Orca
true.
was using. But
Yeah.
either way, today we're going to talk about the Orca date bug, which appears to actually not be a bug.
Might not be a bug.
It's definitely not a bug. That's very clear it's not a bug at this
Okay,
point.
okay, okay.
Yeah, 100% not a bug.
Let's start by describing the situation before we get into like the drama and stuff. You want to lay it out for people who maybe don't own Orcas or don't know what's up.
Yeah, so if you open our Imager link, we actually got kind of a timeline going on in there. Maybe
Oh
we can
man,
follow along.
you are so prepared.
The first thing we saw was, unfortunately, and we also have a video by Johnny Five talking about this stuff as well in the show notes. But basically, during the ice race and during WDC, that happened to be when the time bomb went off. So Orca pilots found that while they were powering on their goggles for the second time on the 29th, they were not able to get past a screen that showed them the bootloader or a screen that showed them the picture of this guy Swarg and his company that were showing up in their goggles. And basically the goggles were locked to the bootloader mode, and then we got an update where they were going to provide us with updates as soon as possible. Then we got an update from Orca that said, hey, we're trying to fix this. We think we have a fix. We're going to publish a fix. And they did publish a fix, but unfortunately, we found that V1 goggles did not work for at all. V2 goggles, it appears to work for, but it's very hit or miss, and they've decided to not really endorse it as the official fix anymore.
Yeah. So the issue is that if the goggle has a date of, I think it's April 29th, 2023 or later, then when you power the goggles up, the bootloader will lock itself and the goggles won't boot. And so some people are not affected by this because they never actually set the date of their goggles. And so, I don't know, it came set to, January 1st, 2000 or something. And so they just don't know yet that they should brick themselves. But anybody who set the date correctly on this time, their goggles just stopped working.
Yes, unfortunately they did. They stopped working. So yeah, sometimes there were like we said, there were a number of attempts to fix it by Orca, but unfortunately it seems like for many people that did not work. Some people are unbricking their V2s and their race goggles with that procedure. But anyway.
So they did post a procedure. It did work for some people with V2 goggles and race goggles, but it didn't work for the V1s. Do you know if it worked consistently for the V2 goggles? Do we have any idea about that?
It does not work consistently. That's why it was removed, to my understanding.
Yeah,
at least it's not an acceptable fix by Orca. So.
It's not just the V1 that it doesn't work on. It's also the V2 that it doesn't work.
That's my understanding, correct. Yeah, otherwise they would have published it in every release they've done since then, but they've said we're waiting to release a fix.
Okay.
So, now through our timeline here.
Okay.
Basically, they were still working to get a solution out. They asked people to fill out a form. We have that form linked in the show notes if you need that form. We're not sure they're going to be using it based on the future information we heard. But yeah, basically, you can fill that form out with the with your information or contact customer support about your goggles. Then we got the next message, which happened earlier today. And basically, this message came along a release by another company who put out a statement about the Orca goggle issue. And essentially, what happened is Orca is calling this ransomware. And what actually happened instead of a bug was a previous contractor who had worked with them put a time execution-based code into the firmware, and that caused it to kick into bootloader mode based on this, what they're calling a time bomb. So basically, this was something Orca wasn't aware of. They said the contractor put it in maliciously. There is no contract about it, all that kind of information, that sort of thing. At the same time, we saw basically a post go up by this other company.
Swarg.
And they said Swarg, and Swarg basically said, like, hey, this is a licensing issue. They didn't pay us. We have a contract, all this kind of stuff. Orca's obviously denying that. And really, if you think it out for about 5 seconds, I don't know that it really makes sense that it could be a licensing issue, because how would these licenses have been applied to all these goggles in a timely manner? Why would Orca have waited this amount of time to actually push a fix and let it happen over a race weekend?
Yeah.
Like, none of the things really add up when you think about why, if this was a licensing problem.
One of the ways I think about this is you look at the things being said by Swarg, whoever that is, and the replies from Orca, and they disagree on a lot of points, but they both seem to agree that there is code in the bootloader that causes the goggles to brick on this date. And I think, do you agree that both Orca and Swarg agree that Swarg wrote the bootloader? But like Orca thinks that they did it as like an employee or a contractor, and Swarg thinks they did it on a licensing basis, where if Orca didn't re-up the subscription, then it would expire. That seems to be what they're saying. So so either way, Orca has really screwed up here. Either Orca knew that this was licensed and failed to update the subscription or do negotiate, and or failed to notify users that they had not done this and their goggles were about to brick, which I don't find that plausible, but that's a theoretical scenario that fits the facts. Or one of Orca's employees put this time bomb in here without them knowing, and they didn't know, and this just happened and they were caught flat-footed. Either way, I mean, this is the kind of thing that can permanently lose you customers, because people will just be like, I can't trust you. I'm not using your product anymore. It's a big deal.
100%. Yeah, and up until, even Swarg, I believe, in his statement, and then we also heard from many, many users, the V1 was not working and there might not be a V1 fix, because if you go, the fix for the V2s was to basically touch two pads, and the two pads touching would allow you to flash a file, and I believe the file reversed the time on the clock just to move it back far enough so that it didn't trigger the bootloader.
It didn't really fix the issue. It just reset the clock.
That's my understanding. That may be incorrect, but that's my understanding of the fix. However, the V1s didn't have those pads, or the pads hadn't been located. But as of earlier today, Ivan put out a statement. If you want to scroll down a little bit farther, there we have some more information from Ivan, some of his talking in the groups. But yeah, we got basically a release earlier today that said, we did it. We fixed it. We found a clean solution for V1 and V2. The team was able to neutralize malicious software and find a fix. We're attenting it excessively. He says it'll be out tomorrow morning CST. And then the Orca account also posted, they think it'll be out by the end of the day CST tomorrow. So Orca is saying that your V1 or V2 or in the ostensibly race goggles will be fixable as of tomorrow at the end of day CEST.
I feel like we apologize for the inconvenience is in the running for, biggest understatement of history. We will be keeping an eye out. I actually have the beginning of a video recorded about this and about how to fix it. And as soon as they publish an actual fix, I didn't want to publish it with the old fix and have it be incorrect the day I published it. So I'm working on that. Eric Toft says this shows why code reviews are very important to have. But I feel like they might not have caught this even if it was a code review, because there seems to be some indication that this was just like that the Swarg person or entity wrote the bootloader for them and then just delivered them the bootloader, and that they may not even have had the source code to review.
Yeah, so I think there's two ways this can happen. One, it was just written in plain code and they missed it, right? Because they didn't do a code review to see it, right? Or didn't realize it was a problem or whatever.
I mean, that's possible.
Or two, it's a contractor who wrote a blob for them, I think is the normal term. A blob is like an obfuscated, encrypted code that is called by the rest of their code. So all they can see is the calls to the blob and the information back from the blob. However, you would think a company like Orca, as soon as they have the money and resources, would attempt to remove this blob code and get only clear code that they could tell. I think that's also part of a code review. So I think that's where I've seen the criticism come in, is that even if you didn't know what was in that blob, you should have known everything in your code as soon as you could afford to know everything in your code.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big screw up, no doubt. There's no question it's a big screw up. Let's see. Vicky Bharati says if it was a license issue, it would be in a contract. Yeah, I think the claim by Swarg that this was some kind of a licensing thing To me, it
It's
feels
not.
like weak tea. Um,
There's
but I
no.
obviously I don't know.
There's no pathway to fixing licensing if this was in there, right? This would have
How
had
do
to
you mean?
happen 6 months ago, a year ago, for them to get
Right.
in. Like the Orca goggles aren't connected to the internet. There's tons of users who will power these up without firmware updates. So the
Right.
only way you would pay this licensing fee would then be to get a file to push to everyone's goggles, and you have to contact every single customer who's ever received a goggle, every
Yeah.
goggle in stock
Well,
everywhere. It makes no sense to attempt to do a licensing plan like this at all.
and the
So
idea that the bootloader like bricks itself, and then the only way to flash it after it's bricked is to go and access programming pads inside the goggle. Like if it was a licensing thing, then the way that it disabled itself would have been easy to undo once you pay. It's like with ransomware. People say if I pay for the ransomware, will I get my data back? And generally, if you pay for ransomware, they unencrypt your data and you get your data back because that's your incentive to pay them. So there would have been
yes.
a letter that said, "Hi, Orca goggles license expired. Please contact Orca to renew your license." And then it would have been really, really easy to undo that. The fact that they bricked in a sort of semi-permanent way that completely just disabled the goggle seems to support Orca's claim that this was something malicious. But of course, we
Yeah.
don't know the facts. Orca says they're going to sue.
Yeah,
Say
they've
that a
already
lot.
said they're trying criminal action. They're going to sue the company. They're going to sue the shareholders. They're going to sue basically everybody involved to
Yeah.
try to stop this and make him shut up. I mean, his logo popped up on the goggles, so it seems like he's down to do this. I don't know. It seems very odd because you have to look at the facts, and if you think like, why would somebody have made this decision? Like to put this time bomb in and then put their whole company on the line if there wasn't some kind of agreement. Like it seems very,
Yeah.
very, very odd. But also, again, how would this agreement be executed and how would the licensing work? It doesn't really make
It's
any sense. So
It doesn't make sense, and it's a bit. I feel like we're on the verge of going around in circles, so we should
yeah,
avoid that. But it doesn't make sense. The things that Orca is saying. Here's the thing: the things that Orca is saying, even if true, do not vindicate them. Orca is saying this was done to us maliciously by someone. But like, if LastPass says, "Hey, I lost all your passwords," someone broke in maliciously. It's like, I don't care. I'm your customer. You need to deliver me a product that works. The fact that you failed to do that is the big issue here. Not like how mean the guy was who did it to you. It was up to you to prevent this from happening, and you failed. So sorry, someone was mean to you. Either way, you effed up.
yes,
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see what the fix is tomorrow. Hopefully, all the people who were affected will be made whole. That is the one good thing about this. Orca's attitude throughout this has been, we will take care of you as our customer, even if it means shipping every set of Orca goggles in the world back to Croatia at our own expense and turning them around. We will make this right. If you tear your faceplate foam taking the goggles apart, we'll send you new faceplate foam. That is something that they should get 100% full credit for doing right. Good for them.
absolutely.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, we can't fault them for the response. I think it's been, top notch, and they've done everything they can. They got that early fix out, and even though it didn't work for every single goggle, it seemed to work for most people at, like, for instance, the ice race. Everybody there was able to find a goggle to fly with for every race, and nobody missed a heat, as far as I know. So it helped that it happened on qualifying day, but yes, they were able to get everybody's unbricked enough to be flyable and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
If this had been open source code on an open source set of goggles, this might not
Yes.
have happened. HT0.
Well, would not have happened, but
Well,
yes,
just because the code is out there doesn't mean anyone's going to see it, but probably somebody would have seen it. Yeah.
Well, what I would say is there could have been a quick solution developed by everyone instead of us waiting on a solution to this thing that we don't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like if it was open code, it would have been much easier to
Oh,
make a
clearly,
response.
because it's just more people. Like I'm guessing that this was some kind of encrypted blob or compiled blob that Orca didn't have access to the source, and then they spent the last 2 days madly staying up all night rewriting it from scratch so they could deliver something to us that we could write instead. And if it had been open source and all the code had been public, that would have gone faster. So